What's up, Beaverines? This is John. Again, I'm still drinking coffee. By the time you see this, it's going to be sometime in the afternoon. And I wanted to post something on the backup channel. It's been killing me, son. This channel has sat over here and it's just sitting idle. And there are a lot of people over here, a lot of eyeballs. And so I said, I do more than just prepping. So I want to put a bunch of other stuff out there. I want to put it over here on the backup channel. So thank you for being here. It's great to be on the backup channel because you never know when you're going to catch a strike from YouTube. Our main channel, again, yesterday we got dinged on the video. That's being disputed. And as I was saying during the live stream this morning, the only discouraging part about that is that they bury the main channel when that happens because the spotlight's on you at that point. If I probably said something on live stream or something was in chat, the algorithm caught it, a certain key phrase maybe, and maybe we were talking about Hunter or something. I don't even know. They don't tell you. They ding it and they put you in the corner. And so when people are looking for prepping videos, they don't see you anymore. When they're looking specifically for Prepper Nation and they're typing it in, sometimes they still can't find the new videos and the current live streams and stuff. But anyway, I'll quit complaining. That's not what this video is about. All right. I want to show you this real quick. So I'm always talking about retro games, how I collect retro games. And admittedly, I haven't bought any in several months. And it used to be this deal where I would buy a few every month. And then this is kind of how I amassed a collection. Caveman and I used to run a game store together. For those that don't know, in Mount Airy, North Carolina, called Godfather Games. I know, right? It was a retro game store. But anyway, some of the games are left over from that. He kind of took the newer stuff when we stopped doing it. I kept the retro stuff, and I've just been adding piecemeal to it as I can. Past couple of months, I have not bought anything game related because Joe's America sucks. And I'm more focused on the prepping, but it's still a passion of mine, man. And the reason it's a passion of mine, growing up, we didn't have a lot of money. So when these newer game systems would come out, I couldn't afford them. But I could afford, back then it was like Game Pro magazine and stuff like that. So I could use my allowance and get the gaming magazine. So I learned a lot about the games before I ever had a chance to play them. And then when I started working, kind of as a 18, 19-year-old, then I could afford to buy some here and there. And I got into it and I started scooping up again games that I really couldn't afford back in the day. And honestly, not to be ranting too much, but because I couldn't afford them and I was reduced to reading reviews in magazines and reading books and stuff on them, I think that kind of led to me writing books, to be honest with you. And a lot of the concepts and characters and stuff that I use in my writing actually come from the video game world. So anyway, Prepper Nation's logo is inspired by my favorite system ever, my favorite console ever, right here, the TurboGrafx 16. Do y'all see the similarity there between that and that? You getting it now? Occasionally I'll get a comment and they'll say, "Oh man, you stole the TurboGrafx 16 logo." Well, number one, it's done because I love the console and I'm probably one of 3 or 4 people in the world that still collect it. Number two, nobody gives two craps about the TurboGrafx 16. NEC don't give a crap about it. I mean, they really don't. They probably couldn't even believe somebody would be inspired by the logo. But what got me in trouble with this console, because there's only 100 or so games out for the North American version, I got into collecting them. Some of the games are $20, $30, and I wiped out the more common games, and now I'm to the point where I'm lacking about 15 for the entire set, and each one of these games is $800, $1,500. There's actually one game that's over 10 grand, called Magical Chase, and I will never ever spend that kind of money on a retro game. And to boot, Magical Chase sucks. So there's no way I'm spending 14, 15 grand on a game I'll never play. But when I bring up retro video games, almost every single time I do, I have comments and emails and messages and stuff about the original Nintendo, which is a close second for my favorite console ever. The TurboGrafx is more obscure and kind of quirky, and that's why I like it. But the Nintendo, man, everybody knows that. So this video is about how to find the stuff, how to find it, how to get back into it cheap. Because the questions I get are, dude, man, I used to play Nintendo all the time, but I wouldn't know how to get into it and stuff like this. So for anybody who doesn't know, we're talking about this. The original NES. Yeah, I got several of these. The problem is, number one, these are kind of expensive now. These are $100 to $150. All right, in working order. You can get them trashed and try and fix them, but it's really hard to find them in decent shape and working. So that's number one. Number two, it's just you don't know how long they're going to last. These things came out in 1985, folks. I think. Pretty sure here. 84 or 85. Yeah, 85, this one at least. That's a long time ago. So every time you plug this thing up and fire it up, you're taking a chance on it not working anymore and you being out of 100 or 150 bucks, right? So there's an alternative, and I'm going to link to it down below. Okay, this is if you're wanting to get back into the retro stuff, this is going to be a lifesaver. All right. They make what are called clone systems. See that right there? Now, this one's a harder to find one. This one's actually pretty expensive. But the one that I'm going to link down below is around $50. Comes with a controller. It's HDMI. The clone systems, this is one from the early 2000s, if I'm not mistaken. So there was no HDMI. Maybe actually a little older than that, late 90s. But these are very hard to find. They didn't make many of those. But my favorite is Hyperkin. It's a brand called Hyperkin, and I literally have 4 of these jokers, and I'll tell you why real quick. They come with a controller. If you order, like a second controller, it's $10 more to get a Hyperkin with a controller. So every time I get a controller for one of these bad boys, I just pay $10 more and I get an extra console. But the cool thing about these is they have their own controllers. They look very similar. They're called cadets, but they actually take the original controllers as well. So if you've got these sitting around from back in the 80s, or you got a pawn shop nearby or eBay or something, you can get a controller in really good shape and actually use them. All right. So for about $50, you can get into it. That's the console. Now, how much do the games cost here in 2023? Most of your NES games, Nintendo games, are going to run right about $10. Believe it or not, $10 is the sweet spot. Here's pro wrestling. I brought it out. It's one of my favorites, son. Does anybody remember this game? I got fond memories of this game and going out and trying to backyard wrestle with friends after this. We all had it. We were tearing each other up. Starman is the man on that game. So for most people, they're going to be okay with going out and getting games like this for $10, RC Pro-Am, Tecmo Bowl, stuff like that. So you can, for $100, you can get 5 games that you remember that are going to fire up every single time. You can get a clone console, and it'll be HDMI. So you can plug it up to your new TV and you can start gaming again. Mario 3 is around $10 to $15, stuff like that. It's when you get into the more expensive games that you start running into trouble collecting games. So the most expensive game that I'm aware of outside of the World Championships, if you've ever seen the old movie The Wizard, the reason the World Championship cartridges are so expensive is they use them in the movie, and there aren't many. But I'm talking about stuff that was common, okay? Like this, for example, Zelda. All right, so this is probably my favorite game on the NES. I'll tell you straight up. Um, it's hard to find copies of Zelda for under $40. And when you find them for $40, they look horrible. Um, these things, the difference is most of the Nintendo games were gray, and you could handle them all day long, and they're not fading and stuff. Just wipe them down every so often. Zelda 1 and 2 were actually gold. They were shiny gold paint. And so this one's in pristine condition here, son. But most of them, I don't handle it, is why I got a beater that I play. But most of them that you find will have um, the gold paint will be rubbed off all over the place. The labels will be peeling. There'll be black splotches where the paint's just chipped off and stuff. So that copy's about $150 if you get it in pristine shape. And then hardcore collectors get into grading games. So if they have a pristine copy of something, they're actually companies. Wada Games, I believe, is the biggest one, but you can pay, I think it's 30 or $40 per game. You can send it off. They grade it on a scale of 1 to 10. I'm not kidding. And then they encapsulate it in plastic. So you're not playing it anymore at that point. But those can literally go for thousands of dollars. And it's very common to see that games sometimes are still brand new in the box. Those will get graded and stuff like that. So I'm not into it that far, especially with the Nintendo, because I still like to play it. For me, it's about playing it. Castlevania is a close second, though, as far as my favorite game. So you can get into it for roughly $100, and that's picking up several games that you remember, like your Tetris, your Ninja Gaiden. Punch Out is up there. It's kind of like Zelda. Mike Tyson's Punch Out's up there. It's around $40. Your games are going to run 10 to $40 on average, but most of them are going to hover around $10 or so. Anyway, that's how you get into it. That's me answering probably the most asked question slash comment that I get anytime I mention retro games. That's the Nintendo for you in 2023. Again, the company is called Hyperkin. I'm going to link straight down below this video to it in case you're interested. And just so you know, the Hyperkin company makes all kinds of clone systems. So they make Nintendos, they make Sega Genesis, they make Atari 2600 for y'all old school gamers. Yes, I have them all, folks. I've got several of each, but they're all out there and they're all available. God bless y'all. Thank you once again for picking up on the backup channel, and I'll see you Monday morning.